Good day, viewers. My name is Adeba Olumewa. Today, I'll be talking to you on impact of accounting for foreign exchange volatilities in companies' financial statements. This is brought to you courtesy Green Finance Concepts. And all we'll be discussing today is fashioned out of the experience we have and also on the basis of the requirement of IS 21. As you all know today, as a form of recent development, Nigeria economy is in section. Nigeria economy has contracted approximately 1.51% in terms of negative GDP growth rate in 2016 as released by the National Bureau of Statistics. And this also confirms the position in Nigerian naira to other currencies of the world. And this as a result of the fact that Nigeria consumes more in terms of import goods and services as compared to exported goods and services, which shows that Nigeria has continued to report or record negative GDP and also negative balance of payments. Now, our bone of contention is not of the economic impact, but rather we are looking at the accounting impact from how companies which are exposed to foreign exchange are to report the movements and the impact of depreciation or appreciation in naira against other countries' currency in their financial statements. This is in a bid to reflect the financial position and financial performance that shows a true and fair view. And on the premise of this, it is worthy to more or less emphasize on the requirement of the generally accepted accounting principle, which is IFRS. IFRS is International Financial Reporting Standards as issued by the International Accounting Standard Board, and the standard that borders on the effect of changes in foreign exchange rates is IS 21. IS 21 tends to serve the objective to which companies report across the correctly the activities that borders on the exposure to foreign currency exchange rates. Now, IS 21 tends to explain the accounting practices for translating foreign transactions and foreign operations and for preventing the exchange differences that arise. The standard does not apply to edge accounting for currency items, including the edge of net investment in foreign operations, as all this has been addressed by IS 39, and for those that are fairly adopted, IFRS 9. Now, as we move on in this discussion, you will more or less realize that exposure to foreign currency is not a function of your size as a company or as an entity. This defies the fact that you are a big company or a small company, either by size, by capital, or by production, or by geographical distribution. Likewise, it defies the nature of whether you are publicly listed entities or you are a private entity, including government business enterprises or not-for-profit making organizations. But this affects all forms of entities to which they are exposed to foreign exchange rate movements. Now, it is worthy of note that recent development and information from questions and inquiries that have been put forth to me has made me come up with this video and with this position paper. And this will likely assist finance professionals, my colleagues, academicians to be able to have a better understanding about the impact of accounting for foreign exchange movements. As we move on, we'll observe the following. The following are the key issues to which form the base of my discussion. The first thing is to consider and ask a simple question about when is spot rate used. Spot rate is seen to be the rate available for immediate delivery, which is the rate to which company A and company B will exchange a unit of a currency with another currency. For example, If today I'm to buy goods on a cash and carry basis, my functional currency is Naira, but the goods I'm purchasing is in dollars. And I have to exchange Naira for dollar in order to buy the goods. If I'm able to purchase dollar for 500 Naira today, and I purchase 1,000 units of dollars at a rate of 500,000 Naira, and I use that $1,000 to buy the goods I wanted. In my books, the spot rate represents the rate to which the immediate transaction is being conducted, or the rate in which I can be able to deliver my Naira in exchange for the unit of dollar to which I demanded. And that's what we mean by spot rate in its simple terms. Now, when is spot rate applicable for financial reporting purposes? Likewise, we'll be looking at the average rates. What constitutes average rate? From the word average, it means you look for a mean, that is, where you have different rates at different periods or different days, and you want to approximate it to what should be the mean value of such rate. And that's what we simply mean by average rate. Sometimes it's been called standard rate or corporate rate for those companies that operate enterprise resource planning applications such as SAP or Oracle applications. Now, the question then is, when is average rate applicable or appropriate for financial reporting purposes? Likewise, we'll be looking at what frequency is required in updating our average rate. Are we supposed to use average rate for the whole year to carry out translation as it's being required, or are we to use quarterly, weekly, and what constitutes it? We are going to discuss that, and it's a function of certain things that we need to look at, which more or less represent the substance of the transaction or operation as a whole. Also, we'll be looking at it that from which source is the exchange rate obtained, especially as we are in a dicey situation in Nigeria. Presently, report has shown that we have series of rates or different rates. Sometimes we could say we have interbank rate, which is different from CBN rate. We could have BDC rate, which may be different from parallel market rate, and also rate for travelers, rate for medicals, rate for students, and some other things. But the bone of contention here is from which source, which of the rates should we make use of for financial reporting purposes? This will equally be discussed. Furthermore, we'll discuss about what exchange rate is applicable for subsequent measurements. Especially this affects monetary assets and liabilities, which we are going to discuss later. At what rate are they translated at different points in time, and especially as at the reporting dates. Further, and finally, we'll also be looking at what treatment should be given to exchange differences. We'll find out that exchange differences are differences that arise as a result of movement in exchange rate between a transaction date and a reporting date, or probably between a transaction date and the settlement date. And all of this will be discussed. And also, emphasis will be made on the fact that exchange difference need not to be realized. It means it could be realized exchange differences, and it could be unrealized. When is it realized and when is it unrealized? All of this will be discussed and how they are to be presented within a company's financial statements. Now, as we move on, I'd like to point your attention to this. Many companies in today's world engage in international transactions, both import and exports, carried out in a variety of foreign currencies, which we could call multinational operations for international trade. In course of international businesses and multinational operations, companies are exposed to the effect of foreign exchange rates and volatilities. The volatilities of foreign exchange rates are termed to be the currency movements of fluctuations, which is experienced on the fact that currencies of the world are traded based on the price mechanism, causes of demand and supply, or because most nations or most economies adopt fluctuating exchange rates, or what we call floating exchange rates. And on the premise of that, we need to understand the impact these fluctuations will have in company's financial statement, especially for a multinational company, and how such exchange differences, gains or losses, realized or unrealized, are reported in the financial statement. All of this will be done basically with reference to the requirement of IAS 21. IAS 21, as I said earlier, is the standard that more or less govern transactions that give exposures to foreign exchange movements. Now, the prices of which foreign exchange currencies or foreign currencies can be purchased or sold are what is termed foreign exchange rates, and which I've explained earlier. In a simpler form, you will see it as a commodity. A currency can be seen as a commodity from this angle. You have to buy an orange, and an orange is sold for 10 naira per one. It means one orange costs 10 naira to buy. The same thing happens to currency. As of today, we could say to buy 1 unit of dollar, we needed 500 naira, which then means that 500 naira per unit of $1 is termed to be the exchange rate of naira to dollar, which represents the value to which naira can be exchanged for 1 unit of dollar. And that is the simplest way of explaining foreign exchange rates. Now, as we move on, we'll find out that the value of foreign currencies payable and receivable fluctuates as foreign exchange rates fluctuates, all because payables and receivables are more considered as monetary assets and monetary liabilities. And as we move on, we'll realize why certain rates are applicable to them and why we need to carry out more or less a evaluation based on the changes in the exchange rates in order to reflect the economies of those payable and receivable at every point in time, especially as at the reporting date. Now, we need to understand the impact that fluctuations in foreign exchange rates have on financial statement of multinational operations, which I've said before, and how foreign currency gains and losses, whether realized or unrealized, are reflected in the company's financial position. However, an entity can decide to present its financial statement in a currency that may be different from the functional currency. Now, when we talk about functional currency of an entity, it's simply put as the currency of the primary economic environment in which the company or the entity operates. Likewise, a presentation currency can be considered as the currency in which a company presents its financial statement or probably reports its financial statements. It is more or less considered, or probably we can consider it that it is normal for us to say that our functional currency should be our reporting currency. But as we move on, we realize the fact that there are instances or situations that might make it impracticable to adopt your functional currency as your reporting currency, which means your presentation currency can be different from your functional currency. All of this will be considered as we move on. Now, the first point of call is to answer this simple question, and the question borders on how to determine functional currency. How do we determine functional currency? If you recall, in the course of this video, I explained to us that functional currency is the currency of the primary economic environment in which an entity operates. Therefore, there are various factors that need to be considered, but in simple terms, the factors are based on the substance of the company's operation and its principal activities. Now, when an entity operates in several different nations or environments, or probably when a company buys in different currencies and sells in different currencies, it may not always be a straightforward matter in determining what is functional currency to be. This is common for multinational operations. Entities need to consider the following issues in determining their functional currency. The first discussion will border or the first factor will border on which currency principally influence your selling price of your goods, or if you're a service entity, which currency determines the value of services you have rendered or you're about to render. this will determine what is your functional currency, which means if goods are purchased in dollars, but they are primarily sold in naira, we could presume that naira is your functional currency. But this is not done in isolation. Other factors may likely be taken into consideration, which implies that holistic view will have to be taken into consideration. The second one is which countries' competitive force and regulation principally determine the selling price of your goods and services, which means it depends. For example, in Nigeria, oil and gas companies, or what we call the IOCs, the IOCs are multinational entities, and we also have some marginal field operators in Nigeria, which are indigenous companies. When you look at it very well, you'll find out that it is not debatable to say that for upstream activities, dollar represents the functional currency of oil and gas companies, or because dollar is a primary currency in which crude oil are being priced in the international economy and based on trade. And therefore, regardless of the fact that those multinational operations operate in Nigeria, registered in Nigeria, but it could be deduced and it could be concluded that the functional currency is dollar. The same thing happens when you go to the third factor. The third factor is trying to answer the question: in which currency are funds for financing activities generated or obtained? Which means you ask yourself a simple question: where do you obtain your finances? How do you generate your finances? How do you obtain your equity position? How do you obtain your debt? Which currencies are they obtained or are they granted? And on that premise, that would be a basis of determining what your functional currency could be. Also, we look at the fact that in which currency are received from foreign operations generally kept. This is simply put that companies generate cash, and regardless of the currency to which the cash is generated, in which particular currency or currencies can you say the cash or bank balances are being maintained? For example, a business might be generating naira but maintain primarily dollar balances or cash position that are maintained in dollar. But can't we consider it that if the strategy or probably the operation of the entity entails you more or less storing your value of wealth in more stable currency, which is dollar, regardless of the fact that you generate naira, can't we deduce that dollar might be your functional currency, probably because your goods are being sourced in dollars but being sold in naira? All of this have to be taken into consideration. Finally, we also ask a simple question: which currency influences your labor cost, or in which wage is being paid, your material is being paid or sourced, and other costs that are an integral part of your operation? Because all of this is a substance that depicts that if your principal activity is carried out in a currency other than a currency to which you carry out some activities, therefore we can consider the currency that dictates the principal activities to be your functional currency. But there's a technical note here. Where consideration of different factors do not result in a clear identification of the functional currency, the issue becomes a matter of judgment for the management of the entity to decide, of which management will look at other soft and probably management factors to take a position, and this will be a judgment. But one thing is clear: what the management might have considered the functional currency might not be changed in the immediate future, except if circumstances change. And those are the things we need to take into consideration in formulating the accounting policies for the entity. Now, let's move to the next question: how to determine presentation currency? Now, if you could recall, in the discussion earlier, we said primarily presentation currency should be the functional currency of an entity, but instances exist where presentation currency might be different from the functional currency. These instances are what we need to consider now. And this is as a result of factors that are taken into consideration or generally acceptable as the basis of determining such in accordance with the requirements of IS 21. Now, why would an entity choose a presentation currency that is different from functional currency? Yeah, it's a question that begs for an answer. But one of the following could serve as reason to doing such. For example, an entity functional currency might relatively be obscure. Probably in the current Nigerian situation, we might find us to be in a situation where our currency is not stable, it's highly volatile, and that might mean that a company that has a balanced exposure between its activity in Nigeria and also activity outside Nigeria might prefer to report its activity in a more stable currency, dollar, from which only Nigerian aspect of the operation or business will be required to be translated back to dollar, and of which it limits the exposure to foreign exchange gain or losses. And likewise, the entity may then choose to report in a currency such as US dollar, or simply put, euro, in order to make its financial statement more transparent and less volatile or less susceptible to movement in exchange rates. The entity's principal investors will also be a determinant or a factor, which implies that if the principal investors are US based, while the company operates in Nigeria, it will be more desirable to report in US, which is a currency to which the investors have a better knowledge of, or be able to have a base of comparison. Likewise, the entity may be seeking investment from potential investors, and of which it tends to satisfy the requirement of the potential investors, and also on the ability to be able to have a better informed decision with respect to currency to which they are familiar with. These are some of the factors that entities are expected to consider in determining presentation price. And in most recent times, it is evident that sometimes companies report in dual currencies. Like most indigenous companies in Nigeria, even in the oil and gas industry, they've gotten to a level where financial statements are presented both in dollars and in naira, and this more or less tends to satisfy both local investors' requirements or our local regulation, and also satisfy the requirement of foreign investors or for some entities that are likely to have been quoted in the New York Stock Exchange or probably in the London Stock Exchange through the Global Depository SWIFT window. Okay, as we move on, we'll be looking at another question that's more or less begged for an answer, is when is the spot rate used? And recall that we said spot rate is the rate of exchange between two currencies that is available for immediate delivery, which can be bought or sold at that spot. Okay, now it represents the exchange rate between functional and foreign currencies at the point of transactions. As at the transaction date, the rate to which you can source for dollar as against naira value is what we consider as a spot rate. That is the ruling rate as at the date of transaction. Initially, all foreign currency transactions shall be translated to functional currencies by applying the spot exchange rate between the functional currency and the functional currency and the foreign currency as at the date of the transaction. The date of the transaction is deemed to be the date of initial recognition, and upon that, the exchange rate that is ruling as at that date is the applicable rate that should be taken into consideration in reporting financial transactions in company books. Okay, example of transactions that could necessitate the use of spot rates include purchase or sale of goods or services where the price is denominated in foreign currency. A situation where companies have to borrow or lend out money in currency that is different from its own functional currency. A situation where foreign acquisitions were made, that is buying assets or buying an investment or acquiring a company which will become to be a subsidiary in a currency other than the functional currency of the parent. All of this requires spot rate as the exchange rate that should be used in the translation of the transaction that was engaged in. The spot rate applicable in the exchange rates existing as at the trade date. The trade date of the transaction represents the date in which all significant risk and reward of the transaction have passed from the seller or the initiator to the buyer, which is the other party to the transaction, and which implies that trade date accounting is what is much more supported by the requirement of IAS 21. Also, further, we'll realize that spot rate changes as time passes, which implies that spot rate is at every spot. What it simply means is that the spot rate as at a day or close of business today may be different from the exchange rate tomorrow, which then means that the invoice date, when I mean invoice date, the date to which a good is deemed to have been consumed or purchased, or services considered to have been rendered or enjoyed, can be considered as the invoice date, rather than the date that might be contained in the invoice as a document or as the transaction document. Okay, these are the key factors and for instance to take into consideration. Now, what it means is that transaction might have been engaged and goods have been delivered as of 15th of January, but invoice was raised on the 20th of January. What it implies is that which spot rate will be applicable. The spot rate applicable is not a function of the date on the invoice, but rather on the date to which the services is tend to have been enjoyed or the goods is considered to have been received, which means when as a promised goods and services rendered by the other party to you determines your invoice date for financial reporting purposes. And this is a key factor, all because volatility within days might be so high that it could distort the true financial position and of the performance of an entity at any point in time. Okay, the implication of the information of what we have discussed so far in practical sense is that the trade date is synonymous to the value date of transactions. And that represents the delivery of goods or services and not necessarily the invoice date, as in most cases, entities might be getting invoice that is belated. And that's why finance professionals need to be thoughtful about it. In technical situation, an average rate for a period may be much more recommended for companies that involve in continuous purchases, or because it might be an academic exercise to obtain spot rate at every point of transaction when purchases are more or less on a daily basis or on a repetitive basis. Okay, but we'll discuss that also as we move on. Okay, but average rate will not be appropriate in all ramifications or in all instances when there's high volatility or high level of fluctuation between exchange rates. Okay, now let's look at when is average rate applicable. Average rates are rates that are obtained based on simple averages. Or simply put, which is um, more or less less common, is the use of weighted average, which is more or less of academic exercise. But average rate conventionally is based on simple averages, and it is done over a range of periods. But the period is defined majorly by volatility of exchange rate, by the nature or the policies that have been adopted by the company, and some other considerations. And the range of periods could include a weekly review of the rates, bi-weekly, which means twice a week, monthly, biannually, quarterly. But much more likely, we could consider weekly and monthly, and to the extreme, probably quarterly. But in today's world, based on volatility, by annual or yearly average rate might not be appropriate, and it is rarely in use. The frequency of obtaining the average rate is determined by the volatility of currencies. That is, trending and cyclical movement of the currencies is a key factor in determining the appropriateness of average rates. Now, average rate is to more or less satisfy the objective of financial reporting, such that the cost in terms of resources, time, and money of ensuring you work with the rule of translation does not necessarily outweigh the spirit and probably the benefits of doing what you are supposed to do. And that's why we need to consider how frequently do we use our averages, or the frequency of our average rate, which is primarily determined by the level of volatility. Once you have high volatility, the frequency is small. Once you have low volatility, the frequency is less. Which means if there is spike in the exchange rate between Naira and dollar, so that Naira could move from 400 to 450 down to 420 up to 500, it will be advisable that weekly rates might be appropriate, unlike using a monthly rate. And sometimes it might force you to go back to spot rates in order to avoid misrepresentation of the financial performance and position of the entity. Okay, the date of a transaction is the date at which the transaction first qualifies for recognition in accordance with the relevant provision of international financial reporting standards. For practical reasons, a rate that approximates the actual rate at the date of the transaction is often used. And in this instance, we are still talking about the average rate. Now, average rate is applicable in the following situation. 1. Where the average rate is reasonably an approximate of the spot rate, where exchange rates fluctuate less. That means the volatility is low, and where an entity operates highly volatile transaction in terms of purchases and sales, especially. For example, let us look at ShopRite or Walmart, where you could make purchases in different currencies or in a particular currency rather than your currency, but the frequency of your purchases and sales is very high, and therefore it will be exercising futility for you to be able to identify or trace every transaction to a particular period to which you now have to translate at the spot rate. Probably in the immediate future, we could have sophisticated system or integrated system that more or less integrates real life online trading platform or accounting applications, so that the software or the application can more or less feed on the data directly from the market. Okay, but I avoid such situation. Technical note in this case is that if exchange rate fluctuates significantly, the use of average rate for a period is inappropriate. This is a confirmation of some of the discussion we've had in the earlier The next one we want to consider is what is the frequency of updating or revising average rates? Average rates can be obtained based on simple averages, which we have discussed, and the frequency of obtaining the average rate is determined by the volatility of the currency involved. And the change in use of average rate will be more frequent in period of immense volatility. This is more or less confirming our earlier discussion. Now we'll move further to an interesting aspect of the question, and that borders on from which source is the exchange rate obtained? That is, from which source do we obtain the spot rates or the average rates? Now, today, Nigerian experience is a dismal experience and also is a rare situation. Nigerian situation has probably not been experienced or to this degree. For a country to have multiplicity of exchange rates, so that recently there are debates that Nigerian exchange rates vary from 6 markets or 6 bases to about 10 bases. Those ones that are more or less observable by me or by commentators in the recent past include having the CBN official rate, having the interbank rate, which is maintained on the FMDK platform, having what we call the pilgrim rate, having rate for medical, different from other rates, or probably education rates, having the parallel market rates, BDC rates, and all of this are considered to have created a conundrum which we have to live with. And on this basis, I more or less try to make some commentaries about what I perceive and in line with the requirement of IS21, which rates can be deemed to be appropriate. Now, exchange rate should equally reflect the fair value in accordance with the requirement of IFRS exchange. Hence, the primary market in which an entity source of funds and or convert foreign exchange earnings should be the same source of its exchange rates, be it a spot rate, average rate, or closing rate. In our situation, that is Nigerian situation, the applicable exchange rate is probably the FMDQ platform, as it is deemed that CBN rate has been collapsed, presumed to be collapsed onto the platform, and we are not to use the parallel market rates for transactions. The reason being that parallel market rates cannot be validated because it is carried out within the market shadow, okay, and which means it's not something that can be validated, even though presently we are seeing like a site that can validate, but how appropriate is the information contained therein and how acceptable it is to external investors. And that platform, I think, is Aboki FX. Okay, but as we move on, it is the ask price and not the bid price that should be selected. What I mean is, if on the FMDQ platform, the bid price of Naira to dollar is 315 Naira, whereas the ask price is 318 Naira. As a company, you are more or less be buying from a dealer or from the financial institution, that's a bank in this case. And in that situation, what is expected is that you buy high, because the difference between the high price, which is the ask price, and the bid price represent the spread of the trader or of the bank. And therefore, the bank will be willing to sell high but buy low from the entity. And which that means that rather we are looking at the exit price, that is the price to which you can source or buy the dollar, not rather the price you can sell. And that is what we are considering to be the ask price. And the ask price will be relevant in all ramification. And in some situations, we might go for the mid price. The mid price is simply the average between the ask price and the bid price. But that is only when the spread is thin. But most appropriately, the requirement of the standard is to more or less use the ask price, which represents the exit price, as supported by the requirement of IFRS 13 on fair value measurement. Consequently, the mid rates may be a surrogate and or a reasonable approximation only for the purpose of obtaining average rates and not necessarily the spot rates or the actual rates. And neither can the ask price be used to determine the spot rate of transactions and the actual rate of exchange used for the applied sources debited or charged to the bank account, line of credit, and letters of credit. We simply put that spot rate might be different from your actual rate. What this means is that you may be able to buy in the market for 500 naira, but as at the point the bank assists you to source for dollar or your account is being charged, the rate might have moved. And it is the actual rate of the bank, because bank rate varies based on the margin that they put. It's based on the actual rate to which you are being charged that you are going to use as opposed to the spot rate. Which means actual rate is much more a reflection of the value to which you have to report in your financial statement. Now, as we also move on, we'll look at what exchange rates is applicable for subsequent measurements. Now, when you go back to the framework of IFRS or financial reporting as a whole, I could more or less deduce the word RMD. RMD implies recognition, measurement, and disclosure. Recognition deals much more with identification of transactions and recognizes those transactions based on the class and element they belong to. Why measurement is subsequent to initial recognition, where transactions are to be reported on the basis of their nature or class subsequent to the initial recognition, which means how should transactions be reported at a later date? This constitutes what we are trying to discuss. Subsequently, at every reporting date, which can be an intervening period between the transaction date and the settlement date, the following should be taken into consideration. All monetary items in foreign currencies are to be translated using closing rates. Closing rate represents the exchange rate as at the reporting date. Monetary items are items that are held in a fixed determinable unit of currency, or simply put, these are items, be it an asset or a liability, and in extreme case, a component of equity, of which the value remain unchanged regardless of changes in price levels or rising in inflation rates. These are considered monetary items. Examples include receivables, it includes payables, it includes cash you have in the bank and include some categories of investments. And these are what we call monetary items. By their nature, if I have a receivable, I bought goods on credit in January when inflation stood at 18.5%. And I have grace period of 90 days to pay. And at the end of 90 days, inflation has risen to 25%. By the contract and by the nature of the transaction, I'm still required to pay the nominal value of the amount so owed as of January, 90 days thereafter. And which implies that at the end of the day, it is the creditor that loses, while myself, who is the debtor, gains. All because if I'm to buy that same item today, which coincides with my settlement period, I will be buying on the basis of inflation adjusted price. And this is vice versa. If inflation rate reduces, I will still be required to pay the nominal value, which implies that the debtor may lose while the creditor gains. Okay. Also, all non-monetary items that are measured at fair value will be required to be translated at the closing rates. These are non-monetary items, which might include items of property, plant, and equipment, items of inventory, and some categories of liabilities. Okay, provided they are measured at fair value. But those that are carried at historical cost will not be remeasured, as those balances need to be carried or translated at their historical rates. All of this is to allow the entity reflect the economic substance of all of its foreign transactions at every point in time, and especially as of the reporting date. How do we treat exchange differences? Or simply put, what can we consider to be an exchange difference? Exchange difference emanates from the movement or the fluctuations between the value to which Naira exchanged to dollar yesterday as compared to today. Which means in an entity, I bought goods worth $1,000 on credit as of 1st of January 2017. And I'm giving 90 days grace to pay the same $1,000. But the goods I purchased at $1,000 will be sold in Nigeria in Naira. Now, regardless of the amount I've sold the goods, probably I've made profit. But at the point of settlement, probably in 90 days' time, Naira have further depreciated against dollar from 500 to 550. What then happened? I'm still required to pay $1,000, but I'll be sourcing for more Naira to buy the same quantity of dollars, which implies that the rate has moved, the paradigm has shifted, and therefore, the slight movement of 50 Naira in that exchange rate will expose me to a loss of 50,000 Naira, regardless of the trading profits that has been made in the sale of those goods. Conversely, it could be that Naira waxed stronger with dollar, and so that Naira now sold for 400 Naira, which then means that I'll be demanding or required to look for 400,000 Naira as against the initial 500,000 Naira being the historical rate of value to settle for the same amount of dollar, which is $1,000. In that situation, I am reporting an exchange rate. That's why I said exchange difference occurs when there's a change or movement in exchange rates between the transaction dates and the settlement dates. And where the settlement date is a later date after the reporting date, it will be a difference that emanated from the movement in exchange rate between the transaction date and the reporting date. And this is usually attributable to monetary items arising from foreign currency transactions. Exchange differences arising on the settlement of monetary items such as receivable payables, loans, cash in foreign currencies, or other transactions that the entity may have carried out or reported in previous reporting dates should be recognized directly in your profit or loss account, which implies that exchange differences, regardless of the fact whether it is realized or unrealized, provided it is attributable to differences arising from the translation of balances held as monetary assets and liabilities. Such gains should be reported in the financial statement. Okay, but if the gain or loss is attributable to translation of monetary items that are held or measured at fair value, such should be reported through other comprehensive income rather than reported through profit or loss. Now, there are two situations to be considered. One of it is the transaction is settled in the same period, which means if my reporting date is every December, and as at November 10th of 2016, I make purchase in foreign currency on a credit of 30 days and I have to make payment on the 9th of December 2016. And if the rate has moved, against me or against the entity, it is worthy of note to recognize the gain in profit or loss, and simply put, the gain is considered to be realized or because settlement has been made. Whereas situations might exist, which is the second scenario, where transaction is settled in the subsequent period, which means a transaction has impact cutting across two periods based on the changes in the exchange rates. Now, the analogy is this. I purchased goods on the 10th of November 2016, of which I'm granted 90 days payment window. And on the 9th of February 2017, I made payments. But take note that my reporting date ends every 31st, which implies that as a reporting date, those monetary balances have to be reported at the closing rate or translated at the closing rate, which then implies that the exchange difference, be it a gain or loss, as at that spot, which represent the intervening period, are all realized. Regardless of the fact that they are unrealized, and so far they are attributable to non-monetary assets and liabilities, they are to be reported in profit or loss. Whereas the movement or changes between the reporting date and the settlement date, that is, between 31st of December 2016 and settlement date 9th of February 2017, will be deemed to have been realized in addition to the earlier unrealized as at the settlement date. And in that situation, such gain, which emanates from the difference between December 31st, 2016 and 9th of February 2017, will be reported also in profit or loss. That represents the two situations that need to be considered in the accounting for exchange differences in the financial statement of an entity. In other words, where a monetary item has not been settled as at the entity's reporting date, it should be restated using the closing rate of exchange, which represents the exchange rate as at reporting date. And any gain or loss should so be reported in the company's statement of profit or loss, which is considered the income statement. At this juncture, I believe you will have enjoyed the discussion and also some salient issues that may be bothering you may have been considered. And if you have any other question or suggestion, feel free to contact me via YouTube, LinkedIn, or my platform, Pimponomics, www.pimponomics.org. Thank you very much, and God bless you.